were pretty looking people, but I can tell you people, they were the devil's children.
Greetings from Castle from Mickey and from me. Well, we have an awful lot of ground to cover this Easter weekend, so without further ado, I will plunge right in as I have a house full of friends, and I am afraid my time is being called upon elsewhere as well. So, without further ado, Hewitt Y says, Lady C, what do you think about Harry and Meghan's visit to the Queen and Prince Charles ahead of the Invictus Games? What are they up to? I, for one, do not trust them and believe their motive is far from building bridges. Oh, Hewitt, why, you're so cynical and clever. Do spill, please. Love to you, Mickey and the Whappies. And I'm going to read out a few of the other questions on this same topic because they cover slightly different ground and I want to answer everything in one fell swoop. SPS says, Dear Lady C, what do you think about the secret visit made by the Harkles at Windsor before they left for The Hague? They were seen by outsiders, visitors to the park, walking on the grounds. Surprise, surprise, isn't it interesting? They can never ever be seen in Montecito, but they managed to be seen at Windsor. Oh my goodness, aren't they unlucky? Or aren't they clever? Probably deliberate. You're not the only one who thinks so, sweetie pie. So the press would find out that they were visiting the Queen. How would they have known otherwise? These two are sneaky customers. No, you are really too suspicious, SPS. But right on the ball. What do you think? Sorry, I'm interrupting myself and causing trouble. No children with them. Of course not. They're not going to travel with excess baggage unless they absolutely need to. So, what do you think? Is the Queen more poorly than we have been told? Very interesting point, that. How do you think old Meg was received? She has done so much damage that cannot be forgiven or forgotten. Well, even if it can be forgiven, sweetie pie, it can't be forgotten. Genster1 says, Dear Lady C, I wonder what you make of the Harkles making a quick visit to see the Queen. The cynic in me says damage limitation, but what do you think? Genster1, I think great minds think alike. I think you've got a great mind. Sue Hansey says, Lady C, I have just read that the Harkles snuck into the country, probably under cover of darkness, to meet with the Queen and Prince Charles to offer them an olive branch, quote unquote. This is presumably because they need something from his father and grandmother. I am sickened by this. What are your thoughts? Well, may I say first of all, I've made notes because the difficulty in answering a question like this so soon after the event. You see, when I write books, there's quite a time lapse between the event taking place and what I have written being published. That gap in itself protects the people to whom I speak. Now, they're not being sneaky, but they are being discreet. And I need to be discreet as well. And, you know, what people will say privately for public consumption is not necessarily the same thing that they will say if their name is put to the comments or to the information. So I'm going to be very careful how I answer this question by making it into an analysis of the situation. So all responsibility will fall upon my shoulders. Also, Harry and Meghan are very interested to know who says what about them. And it does not behoove some of the people I speak to have Harry and Meghan adding up 2 and 2 and getting 4. That's another thing to consider. And remember, I'm not a journalist. So my sources and my information are entirely different. Hence, if I may blow my own trumpet for a moment, why, I am the person who has had a string of firsts, starting with Diana in private and all of the revelations there. And let's not forget, many of the revelations regarding Harry and Meghan came from my book, Meghan and Harry, The Real Story. I just make that point for what it's worth. Well, I just want to slightly, because I picked up something that was not in the notes. And I just wanted to be sure that I address it. The Queen's health, yes. Well, as I have said before, the Queen is visibly fading before our very eyes. If I can see it, I have no doubt that Meghan and Harry can see it as well. Just as how I have my sources of information, they will have their equally accurate sources of information. Now, the Queen is not at death's door, but she is coming up for 96 later this month, and she is not in the best of vigor, let's put it that way. So that is an important factor to consider. Now I'm going to go through the notes that I made because, as I say, it's really important that discretion be maintained. The first issue is their VVIP status. Well, their VVIP status in the Netherlands is on a par with their status when they are in Britain. Also, the Invictus Games is an event that will attract, if it is going to attract anything in terms of protest, and I mean really terrible protest. I'm trying to avoid words that will compromise me in terms of YouTube. But there is always a threat from people who wish to create an incident internationally. So that is why they and all of the other high profile guests have been awarded a certain elevated status. It is not the same as royal status. That's the first point to make. Well, you mentioned damage limitation. Somebody else mentioned an olive branch. Well, there is no olive branch. I know the person who used the expression, and quite frankly, I have as much respect for her as I have for a snail crossing a leaf or an olive branch. It's no olive branch, and nobody believes it's an olive branch except in media land, whether it is Majesty magazine or the Mirror Group newspapers or any of those other rags. Nobody for a second believes it's an olive branch. That's press nonsense. Damage limitation is another matter, because yes, it is damage limitation, because my understanding is, but actually, I'm not going to jump the gun. I'm going to keep to my notes, because though they followed the sequence, and even though the sequence is slightly out of kilter with what would take place in a situation such as this, since the information was gathered in a different format, I'm just going to follow the natural order. Secret meeting. Well, that drew a huge laugh, I've got to tell you, because everything they do is contrived. They're posers and denialists of the highest order. They've been trying to, and are continuing to try to, pump their image up and to add excitement to their dull identities with struggles such as the necessity to have a secret visit which they know will be exposed. I'm going to interject at this point and say, I agree that a lot of this is grandstanding, and it's totally due to their awareness, but I'm going to come to that in a moment, via Netflix, of what they have to do to rehabilitate themselves. Because Netflix is aware of the fact that they have a tainted brand on their hands, and they're trying to clean up the image. So, but yes, they have been trying to pump themselves up, and they are creating struggles where no struggles exist at all. Because this nonsense about Harry and Meghan and the children not being safe in Britain, but being safe elsewhere, is just utter fantasy. The visit they knew would be exposed, and they made sure it would be exposed. Harry and Meghan never went walking in Windsor Park or anywhere that they were walking the other day when they were living at Frogmore Cottage. They never did. This time they made sure they walked until they were seen, which is the trigger for, oh, we've been discovered. Oh, So it's all cloak and dagger nonsense. But according to one of the people I spoke to, they are so pretentious. And here we come to the real nitty-gritty. Royal visits take time to plan. Netflix and Harry and Meghan knew about the Dutch snub. They knew that the King and Queen of the Netherlands would not be hosting them or receiving them in a private capacity as royals. This evidently caused a huge problem for Netflix, evidently rather more so than for Harry and Meghan, because Harry and Meghan would have been perfectly happy to go with the "you see how everybody hates us," and "you see everybody hates us," and we're being so victimized. I'm just a sweet and wilting little flower, and I'm feeling better now that I've sniffled a little bit and just clearing the nostrils has cleared the head. But still, it's terrible when everybody's in for me. But Netflix saw the danger. Netflix evidently saw that it was impossible that because the Queen's health is a great danger to Netflix, because they know that Harry and Meghan have poisoned their own pond with the Oprah interview and the way they behaved over Prince Philip's dying and then his death. And they are trying to retrieve their tainted product and clean it up. And evidently, they are the ones who insisted that Harry and Meghan make sure that they worked a visit into Granny. And of course, there are going to be endless theatrical possibilities, because even though it's going to be on camera, it really is awfully theatrical, the whole thing, isn't it? And there are going to be endless theatrical possibilities of Meghan and Harry speaking about, and then afterwards, what a wonderful visit they had, and oh, isn't the Queen lucky to have them as a grandson and a step-granddaughter-in-law? And I mean, you know, I'm just so fond of the Queen. I mean, she and I just we're on speed dial to each other 28 hours a day. I mean, I'm her favourite person on earth. I am. So it will be milked for all it's worth. But had there not been the Dutch snub, there most likely wouldn't have been the visit, because they knew about the Dutch snub, and Harry and Meghan only have a royalty to sell, nothing else. And tainted products, I'm afraid, don't command top dollar. Of course, after Netflix recommended the visit, I gather that Meghan's position was really rather conflicted, because she is the orchestrator, evidently, of the lawsuit against Her Majesty's own government, effectively. Well, a department of the government, to be more accurate, which Harry has undertaken at Rachel Zane's behest. Slap him once, slap him twice, slap him again. I'm just powerful. I'm Rachel Zane, paralegal who can't even pass her exams. And my namesake can only pass hot air. Well, the Queen, evidently, her response was, because you see, the Queen and Prince Charles are in a very invidious position. And I say this as somebody who comes from a troubled family background. And I understand their dilemmas and their conflicts. And the Queen wants, personally, everything to be calmed down. Charles is devastated and would like everything to be calmed down. Meghan and Harry understand now they have to be careful how they exploit the situation, because Netflix has made them aware of the fact that they themselves have tainted their own product. And so if they don't play ball with Netflix, they will be out on their air, dollarless. But evidently, Harry and Meghan, and I need to refer back to my notes and read what it's. Harry and Meghan have presented the visit to the family as concern for the Queen and her health and how much they wanted to see her. And they are in the pose of mending fences. Mickey's coming to join us. I would strongly recommend to the Queen and to Prince Charles that they avoid the temptation into which I and every other sucker has fallen when we have wished to believe the facade put forth by people who basically don't care about anybody but themselves. Because my information is, and I'm going to quote, Netflix is worried that the Queen might die, and if Harry and Meghan hadn't seen her, their brand would suffer. That convinced Harry and Meghan to climb down off their soapbox and visit, despite their protestations of being in danger. The smoothness of their visit shows how unfounded those fears were. In situations like these, the people concerned choose to go along with the lie as long as it suits them. I think that's, may I interject, a slightly cynical viewpoint. Because I think when you're dealing with people who you love and who you used to think loved you, you still want to believe that there is something genuine and sincere there. The fact of the matter is, my own experience of people like that is their sincerity is totally to their own interests and nothing to do with any regard they might have for you or anybody else. You are just fodder to be used. To be used, as simple as that. And it takes a long time and a lot of heartache to discover that people who you thought loved you don't. And that in fact you are dealing with cardboard cutout creatures. But nevertheless, the fact of the matter is the lie has been well exposed, because they've come into the country, they've left the country, they weren't in danger, there was no threat to them. Had they not paraded themselves in public, they would not have been discerned. Nobody would have known they were here. They are the ones who made sure that people knew they were here. Well, of course they were going to make sure that people knew that they were here, because the whole purpose of being here was that people would know that they were here, preferably before the Netflix is aired, because they are all very mindful of the fact that the Queen could take a turn between now and when their Netflix show is aired. So, the royal family evidently hope that Harry and Meghan will present a facade of normality, while behind the scenes the bitterness continues. What that means is that they know that, even though they might hope to the contrary, that Harry and Meghan are not the sweetie pies that they would like the world to believe. They are aware of Harry and Meghan's downside, maybe not as comprehensively as I became aware of my mother's downside, although it has to be said it was only in the run-up to her death that I realized the enormity of what I was dealing with. So that took me 54 years to figure out. And I think the family have been at it only a few years with Harry and Meghan. So they've got quite a long stretch ahead of them to come to an accurate realization. But Harry and Meghan will simply exploit this impasse to their advantage. This is the fear in royal circles, that, you see, the Queen, Prince Charles, they want the facade of normality. And I know of what I've been told, that both the Queen and Prince Charles are truly hoping that the facade of normality will ultimately convert into positive normality, or normal positivity might be a better way of putting it. Well, that's not going to happen, because pigs don't fly. Sharks swim. They don't walk on dry land. Evidently, William is the one who's totally, if that word is fairly used, up with the program and understands what's going on, and wanted no part of this, because evidently William understands that there is no way forward for the royal family with Harry and Meghan as positive team players batting on the same side. Okay, the Queen is old. Grandparents love their grandchildren with an even greater degree of non-judgmentalism than parents. So I get it, and I hope everybody else does, and nobody will condemn the Queen for her very accommodating point of view. Charles, as a father, more or less has the similar dilemma. And I understand that as well. I saw how my grandmother struggled her whole life to come to terms with what my mother was. And she could never come to terms with the reality of what her daughter was. She always made sure that she, instead of arriving at the finishing line, she'd divert. Call it hope, call it whatever you want, but it is understandable in that situation where it is a big struggle for a parent to come to terms with the fact that the child they love and they thought they knew is somebody they don't know, and more to the point, they don't want to know. It's not so difficult for a brother, evidently. So there has been no clearing of the air, I'm told. There's been no olive branch, nothing substantial was discussed. Everything was polite as one would be with a stranger, which is how civilized people deal with ongoing situations of this nature. I'm quoting, by the way. Treating those who would ordinarily expect warmth with the politeness one gives to strangers and which denotes distance. So, Harry and Meghan have been treated kindly, politely. There was no great rapprochement. There was no, oh, everything is forgiven and forgotten on the part of Charles or the Queen. Nor, from Harry and Meghan's point of view, was there, oh, we've realised that we've been in the wrong. Please forgive us. So it's a rapprochement of sorts, and it's basically a convenience, and it suits both sides. But I can tell you something. I would be very surprised if I'm not right when I say that down the line, Charles and the Queen are going to show that they're going to be shown, I should say, by Harry and Meghan that they were misguided to hope that the shark was actually a turtle dove. Oh, I was also told that Netflix is throwing its weight behind the whole operation, that they are dressing her, that they've flown over her makeup artist Daniel Martin, that they want her to be as glamorous and desirable as she can possibly be. let us see, because Meghan, who obeyed instructions when she was on the cable television show Suits, is not the Meghan who now exists. And let us see. But they evidently have put their foot down and don't want any marching. They don't want her to be flogging any of the clothes off her back as a part of this deal. And they evidently, and maybe it will be successful, because without her orchestrations, maybe they will actually end up having something, they being Harry and Meghan, approximating a success, at least in terms of her appearance. So let us see. And I will end by saying what they said. The family would be stupid to trust Harry and Meghan's long-term intentions. They'll only be nice when it suits them, and when it doesn't, they'll be awful, because that's what they are. So there we have it. Pauline says, of course they will not stay with King William Alexander and Queen Maxima after the way they treated the Queen and the royal family. I am very proud of my king that he said no to the couple. No royal treatment for you. We respect the Queen and the royal family. Maybe there is a job for Harry and Meghan Markle in the circus. And another Dutch person says, Ingrid Mueller says, I'm glad that our king hit the karma nail. I hope that this disgusting couple does not overshadow the games. And thank you, Lady C, for this informative and interesting video as ever. Love your wonderful puppies. Thank you. And Riley Morgan, who presumably is not Dutch, says, the Dutch royal family and people they serve value morals and family tradition. We need more people like them, don't we just? Margaret Porter says, will the king greet the both of them before the games? Will he see them after the games? The reason I am asking is the Netflix crew will be filming all of that. Well, Margaret Porter, my understanding is that the King and Princess Margaret are going to be there at the opening ceremony, and he's going to be there at the closing ceremony. And he's not going to be offensive, and he's not going to be calculatedly rude, but he is going to be within the bounds of decorum and within the bounds of protocol. He's going to be polite, pleasant, as superficially friendly as he would be to anyone else, but not an iota of family solidarity towards Meghan and Harry, because the family solidarity is towards their victims. And Meghan and Harry and Netflix have doubtless hoped that the visit will soften up the Dutch royal family. I don't think they're that dumb. It's not going to soften them up. I don't think they're that dumb. But let us see. Maybe Harry and Meghan are hoping that it will soften them up. Let's see. Ellen Lyon says, Lady C, I'm sitting listening to your podcast. When I was shocked to hear Harry and his wife have paid the Queen a flying visit on their way to the Netherlands, apparently it was an hour-long visit. They also, it was evidently, they also saw Charles and Camilla, who were at Windsor standing in for the Queen distributing Maundy money. Maybe this was the surprise. I'm shocked they would have the gall to come here after all that's gone on. And he's still publishing his book. I thought he was frightened to come here without armed guards. Well, not when bucks are at stake, sweetie pie, not when bucks are at stake. The ITV reporter said they went in and out without any of the TV crews seeing them. No one was aware they had arrived, so just goes to show he's not that afraid, is he? What they haven't got is shame. I wonder whether they revealed who's the royal racist to the Queen, as this is the first time Harry's wife has seen the Queen since she made that accusation. Surely the Queen knew they were coming. Of course she knew they were coming. Royal visits take time to arrange. You can't just pop in and see the Queen. I hope the royals are not going to let them get a foot in the door, because it would certainly upset the British public. Well, you made a very interesting point in your commentary. And that was the issue of the identity of the racist. Well, the racist doesn't exist. Everybody knows the racist doesn't exist, except Harry, Meghan, and their supporters. Certainly the royals know the racist doesn't exist. And going off what Harry said, he knows the royal racist doesn't exist, because he knows that the question was a perfectly normal question as he couched it. So, D. Eliadis says, was the big surprise that they stopped in Great Britain to see Her Majesty the Queen and His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales? Seems they need the royal connection to bleed the cash out of everyone. But they couldn't honour Prince Philip at the memorial service, though they stop in for publicity as they are getting clobbered for their actions. Soon they will truly be private, as most people no longer care to hear their lies. D. Eliadis, I think you've hit a nail very firmly on the head. Their actions are as transparent as glass. If he couldn't come to the memorial service because it was too dangerous, how come he's come a few weeks later when the danger hasn't disappeared? And in any event, where does the danger come from? The paparazzi? Give me a break. Colette Foy says, they best get used to being told no by a king called William. That's several symbols, none of which I understand. Oh, the irony. Colette Foy, I love your sense of humour. It's very droll, very apposite. And yes, they'd better get used to being told no by a king called William. William Alexander to start with, followed by just William. Kathy Wheatley says, I hope the surprise is not Meghan being pregnant again. Oh my goodness. Oh, here we go. Oh my goodness. I am exploding. I'm exploding. I am so fertile. I'm so fertile. Harry looked at me and I got pregnant again. But as more than one person commented, and I'm not going to be like Oscar Wilde, I'm not going to steal the brilliant Bombo, I'm going to give credit where it is due. The miscarriage is possibly, if she's pregnant, there might be a miscarriage. around the time of the Jubilee. Wouldn't that be so sad? The grief. I know, she said, that she would never clutter up the world with 3 children, just 2, but never was a baby as loved as that one. And to lose it was just the greatest ordeal. Oh, it's so terrible. And to think it happened just at the time of the Jubilee. And to think it happened just at the time of the Jubilee. How awful, how awful. Nobody's known greater grief than me. Kathy Russell says, the Markles' surprise at the end of the Invictus Games won't be to bring their ghostly kids with them. I think it could be the day they announce their 3rd baby. If so, the world will laugh its head off. Well, let's give them credit for, well, maybe not them, but somebody, maybe Netflix, for subtlety. Maybe the surprise has been the visit to the Queen. But, or maybe it will be that fecund Meghan had Harry look at her across the room, and all of a sudden she's pregnant again. Oh, she's pregnant again. Even though, as I just said, she did say that they're not going to be unworthy like William and Catherine and clutter up the world with more than 2 children. They're going to be woke and conscionable, and they're going to be relevant, and they're going to have only 2 children. Or maybe the pregnancy will be announced and then there will be the miscarriage. Kate French says, I think we should all be grateful to Malarkey Meg for saving Harry. Just think if she hadn't come along to tell him how horrible his life was, how unhappy he was, and how his family didn't appreciate how important he was. Why, it's possible half-wit Harry could have gone through his whole life believing he was lucky to be privileged, happy to do very little yet live well, like a prince, happy to be thought a hero and adored by the public, and he could even have gone his whole life happy, feeling that he was loved by his family and that he loved his family. So it's a good thing Megs came along to tell him how unhappy he was. Otherwise, I don't think he would have known. Kate French, neither I nor anyone else could have put it better than you have put it. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and please keep the questions coming in. Remember, this cannot be done without you. God bless and goodbye.